Good evening, friends. Good evening, fiends. Good evening, Dovahkiin Supreme. Welcome to Abitlate, where we are continuing our dive into some more Elder Scrolls lore with Feyfolken Part 3. This is the story of the scribe Tharbad who kind of gets in over his head with an enchanted quill. As we shall see today, everything sort of comes to a head. But in this tale tonight, especially this part in the middle, there is some talk and written descriptions of some harm to self. So if you don't want to hear that, maybe skip tonight's story, or I will leave a mark where it's safe to jump to after those descriptions have ended. And, I'll give a little warning right before they are described as well. I want you to be comfy cozy and feel okay. Okay? Great. But yeah, this is part 3 of Feyfolken. So do get comfy, get cozy, gather snacks and mead if you're of age, or coffee, tea, hot chocolate, anything you need to get ready for tonight's story. The thrilling conclusion of Feyfolken. Woo! Alright, without further ado, Feyfolken Volume 3. Tharbad had at last seen the power of the quill, said the great sage, continuing his tale. Enchanted with the Daedra Feyfolken, servitor of Clavicus Vile, it has brought him great wealth and fame as the scribe of the weekly bulletin of the Temple of Ariel. But he realized that it was the artist, and he was merely the witness to its magic. He was furious and jealous. With a cry, he snapped the quill in half. Don't know if that's a good idea, buddy. He turned to finish his glass of mead. When he turned around, the quill was intact. Dun dun dun. He had no other quills but the one he had enchanted, so he dipped his finger in the inkwell and wrote a note to Gorgos in big sloppy letters. When Gorgos returned with a new batch of congratulatory messages from the temple praising his latest bulletin, he handed the note and the quill to the messenger boy. The note read, "Take the quill back to the Mages Guild and sell it. Buy me another quill with no enchantments." It would be frustrating to lose your voice to sickness and then only be able to communicate by writing, and then some Daedric spirit has enchanted the quill and you can only write what it wants now. That's terrible. I don't like that. Neither does he. Gorgos didn't know what to make of the note, but he did as he was told. He returned a few hours later. "They wouldn't give us any gold back for it," said Gorgos. "They said it wasn't enchanted." "Well, then they should give you a refund, right?" I told him, I said, "What are you talking about? You enchanted it right here with that Feyfolken soul gem." And they said, "Well, there isn't a soul in it now. Maybe you did something and got it loose." Whew. Very poor customer service on the guild's part. They do have a business to run, but he really overpaid for that quill. Anyway, Gorgos paused to look at his master. Tharbad couldn't speak, of course, but he seemed even more than usually speechless. Tharbad studied the new quill. It was white-feathered, while his old quill had been dove-gray. It felt good in his hand. He sighed with relief and waved his messenger lad away. He had a bulletin to write, and this time without any magic except for his own talent. Within 2 days' time, he was nearly back on schedule. It looked plain, but it was entirely his. Tharbad felt a strange reassurance when he ran his eyes over the page and noticed some slight errors. It had been a long time since the bulletin contained any errors. In fact, Tharbad reflected happily, there were probably other mistakes still in the document that he was not seeing. He was finishing a final whirl of plain calligraphy on the borders when Gorgos arrived with some messages from the temple. He looked through them all quickly until one caught his eye. The wax seal on the letter read, Feyfolken. With complete bafflement, he broke it open. Little warning here. I think you should kill yourself. It read in perfectly gorgeous script. Okay, yikes. He dropped the letter to the floor, seeing sudden movement on the bulletin. Oh no, he broke the seal open and now Feyfolken is loose in his home. Feyfolken script leapt from the letter and coursed over the scroll in a flood, translating his shabby document into a work of sublime beauty. Tharbad no longer cared about the weird croaking quality of his voice. He screamed for a very long time, and then drank heavily. Gorgos brought Tharbad a message from Vanderthil, the secretary of the temple, early Frida's morning, but it took the scribe until mid-morning to work up the courage to look at it. Good morning, I'm just checking in on the bulletin. You usually have it in on Turda's night. I'm curious, You planning something special? Vanderthil. Tharbad responded, Vanderthil, I'm sorry I've been sick. There won't be a bulletin this Sundas, and handed the note to Gorgos before retiring to his bath. When he came back an hour later, Gorgos was just returning from the temple, smiling. Vanderthil and the archpriest went crazy, he said. They said it was your best work ever. Tharbad looked at Gorgos, uncomprehending. Then he noticed that the bulletin was gone. Shaking, he dipped his finger in the inkwell and scrawled the words. What did the note I sent with you say? You don't remember? Asked Gorgos, holding back a smile. He knew the master had been drinking a lot lately. I don't remember the exact words, but it was something like, Vanderthil, here it is. Sorry it's late. I've been having severe mental problems lately. Tharbad. Since you said, here it is, I figured you wanted me to bring the bulletin along, so I did. And like I said, they loved it. I bet you get 3 times as many letters this Sundas. Tharbad nodded his head, smiled, and waved the messenger lad away. Gorgos returned back to the temple while his master turned to his writing plank and pulled out a fresh sheet of parchment. He wrote with the quill, What do you want, Feyfolken? And this is where the warning comes into effect if you want to skip. Skip on ahead to the time mentioned in the description. Thank you. The words became, Goodbye. I hate my life. I have cut my wrists. Tharbad tried another tact. Have I gone insane? The words became, Goodbye. I have poison. I hate my life. Why are you doing this to me? I, Tharbad Halsik, cannot live with myself in my ingratitude. That is why I have put this noose around my neck. And that concludes that. Thank goodness. Tharbad picked up a fresh parchment, dipped his finger in the inkwell, and proceeded to rewrite the entire bulletin. While his original draft, before Feyfolken had altered it, had been simple and flawed, the new copy was a scrawl. Lowercase i's were undotted, g's looked like y's, sentences ran into margins and curled up and over like serpents. Ink from the first page leaked into the second page. When he yanked the pages from the notebook, a long tear nearly divided the third page in half. Something about the final result was evocative. Tharbad at least hoped so. He wrote another note reading, Use this bulletin instead of the piece of trash I sent you. When Gorgos returned with new messages, Tharbad handed the envelope to him. The new letters were all the same except for one from his healer, Telmaikio. Tharbad, we need you to come in as soon as possible. We've received reports from Black Marsh about the strain of the Crimson Plague that sounds very much like your disease, and we need to re-examine you. Nothing is definite yet, but we're going to want to see what our options are. You better go in soon, like real soon. It took Tharbad the rest of the day and 15 drams of the stoutest mead to recover. Great, so he didn't go in to get seen even though it was very important. Cool. The larger part of the next morning was spent recovering from this means of recovery. Oh, poor guy. In every sense, I guess. He started to write a message to Vanderthil. What do you think of the new bulletin with the quill? Feyfolken's improved version was, a little wording here. I'm going to ignite myself on fire because I'm a dying no talent. Great. Tharbad rewrote the note using his finger and ink message. When Gorgos appeared, he handed him the note. There was one message in Vanderthil's handwriting. It read, Tharbad, not only are you divinely inspired, but you have a great sense of humor. Imagine us using those scribbles you sent instead of the real bulletin. You made the Archbishop laugh heartily. I cannot wait to see what you have next. Yours fondly, Vanderthil. The funeral service a week later brought out far more friends and admirers than Tharbad Halsik would have believed possible. The coffin, of course, had to be closed, but that didn't stop the mourners from filing into lines to touch its smooth oak surface, imagining it as the flesh of the artist himself. The Archbishop managed to rise to the occasion and deliver a better eulogy than usual. Tharbad's old nemesis, the secretary before Vanderthil, Alpheus, came in from cloud rest, wailing and telling all who would listen that Tharbad's suggestions had changed the direction of her life. I'm sure. When she heard Tharbad had left her his quill in his final testament, she broke down into tears. What? That is so cruel. Oh my goodness. Oh my evilness, that is awful. She's gonna be cursed now. I kinda liked her. She didn't cut him any slack. Anyway, Vanderthil was even more inconsolable until she found a handsome and delightfully single young man. Wow, Vanderthil, I'm so happy for you. She had a professional crush on the old scribe, probably. Oh man. I do appreciate how fickle Vanderthil is, though. Cool. I can hardly believe he's gone, and I never even saw him face to face or spoke to him, she said. I saw the body, but even if he hadn't been all burned up, I wouldn't have been able to tell if it was him or not. Oh. I wish I could tell you there'd been a mistake, but there was plenty of medical evidence, said Telemachiel. I supplied some of it myself. He was a patient of mine, you see. Oh, said Vanderthil. Was he sick or something? He had the Crimson Plague years ago. That's what took away his voice box. But it appeared to have gone into complete remission. Actually, I just sent him a note telling him words to that effect the day before he killed himself. You're that healer? Exclaimed Vanderthil. Tharbad's messenger boy Gorgles told me that he had just picked up that message when I sent mine, complimenting him on his new primitive design for the bulletin. It was amazing work. I never would have told him this, but I had begun to suspect that he was stuck in an outmoded style. It turned out he had one last work of genius before going out in a blaze of glory, figuratively and literally. Oh no, so the words that he's been receiving are different too? Oh no. Oh, this changes everything. Vanderthil showed the healer Tharbad's last bulletin, and Telemachiel agreed that its frantic, nearly illegible style spoke volumes about the power and majesty of the god Ariel. Really? Okay. Now I'm thoroughly confused, said Vongelduck. About which part? Asked the great sage. I think the tale is very straightforward. Feyfolken made all the bulletins beautiful except for the last one, the one Tharbad did for himself, said Taskin thoughtfully. But why did he misread the notes from Vanderthil and the healer? Did Feyfolken change those words? Perhaps, smiled the great sage. Or did Feyfolken change Tharbad's perception of those words? Asked Vongelduck. Did Feyfolken make him mad after all? Very likely, said the great sage. But that would mean that Feyfolken was a servitor of Shigarath, said Vongelduck. And you said that he was a servitor of Clavicus Vile. Which was he, an agent of mischief or an agent of insanity? The will was surely altered by Feyfolken, said Taskin. And that's the sort of thing a servitor of Clavicus Vile would do to perpetuate the curse. As an appropriate ending to the tale of a scribe and his cursed quill, smiled the great sage. I will let you read into it as you will. The ends of Feyfolken Part 3. We have quite a mysterious ending. It's not quite the cliffhanger from Part 1 to Part 2, but wow, the story took some twists and turns, obviously. And we don't exactly know who Feyfolken serves. I mean, it could be either, it could be both. Either way, it's a very powerful Daedra, and I don't very much like them. They cause great harm or change someone's perceptions of what they were receiving and drafting. It's not cool. Absolutely not cool. But I do love how much lore there is in these games. Seriously, pretty cool stuff. But let me know what you think in the comments below. It's been a pleasure reading with you. But now off to sleep and dream what you will, or stay a while and enjoy another tale. Whichever you choose, I'll speak to you again. And until then, Busro Da, my friend. Good night.